Okay, this is Steampunk Star is at AmberStreet.com, and I guess I'm here with 8 Foot Beast. He invited me on his
Yep.
show.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I'm here in Atlanta. I just checked in to the Georgian Terrace Hotel, downtown Atlanta, about a mile away from Peachtree Center. Well, it's actually technically a part of Peachtree Center, but it's a mile away from the the Hyatt and the Marriott, where the main hub of Dragoncon occurs. But it's not a bad walk, and it's a decent price compared to a lot of the other hotels, and they at least let you book it a year in advance. But I almost didn't make it because I've been so super sick as a dog, well, almost the entire month of August, because I was a dumbass. I didn't go to the doctor for a very long time because I was like, oh, maybe I have COVID, because I had heavy congestion. I had heavy congestion in my ears, my nasal sinuses. I was like, well, I probably just got COVID, so I'm just going to sleep this off. I've never had COVID before, so I didn't really know what the symptoms were. And then for like freaking 4 days straight, I was like hacking up blood. Sometimes it was like pools of blood. It was like I was doing a heavy metal video, and I was like literally coughing up blood. And I didn't realize at the time that was a life-threatening situation, because that can result in blood clots that's in your lungs, which can result in death. But so, like a dumbass, I didn't go. I got waited until I got really sick. Went to the hospital the day before I was supposed to fly out to go to DragonCon, and they wanted to keep me in the hospital for like 2 or 3 days. So I was there for like half a day. They actually gave me a hotel room, or not a hotel room, a hospital bed. It felt like a hotel room because it had its own toilet, but I had a hospital bed, like my own room, with a toilet and a bed. And they were doing tests. They tested me for cancer. They did CAT scan, X-ray, tested me for TB. I didn't have TB. I didn't have COVID. Oh, the crazy thing is, they kept poking my nose. They poked my nose freaking times. I'll just say fuck 4 fucking times. It was so fucking annoying because it agitated my sinus. My sinuses were already agitated because of my sinus infection, lung infection, and it agitated it even more. And then I was coughing up phlegm even more because they kept wanting to test me for COVID over and over again. And they were like, "Well, we don't know where we put those test results, so we need to test you again." And this was I was at Kaiser Permanente in Hollywood, off of Sunset Boulevard in downtown LA, Hollywood, whatever you want to call it, but the neighborhood of Hollywood, off of Sunset Boulevard. And the staff and the doctor there, they were very nice. It's just that they were a little bit incompetent with the COVID test. But then it just took a long time for lab results. It took about 4 hours. I tested negative for COVID. I didn't have TB, and she was asking if it was I still coughing up blood, and I was like, no, I haven't coughed up blood in a couple of days. And she was like, well, I'll I can't force you to stay here, but I would, if I were you, I would stay here for like 3 days and do more tests. But I was like, no, I got a business trip. I'm working press at DragonCon. I got to go pick up my press credentials. I got a flight. I got to leave in 10 hours. And she's like, well, are you still coughing up blood? And I was like, no. She goes, if you were still coughing up blood, I would tell you you can't travel anywhere. But she goes, but if you start coughing up blood again, you do not need to wait 4 days while you're coughing up blood for 4 days to go to the doctor. That's a life-threatening condition. The first day you start coughing up blood, you go to the doctor immediately. You go to the emergency room immediately. And she says, I need you to promise me, if you start coughing up blood again, go back to the doctor, go back to the ER. She said, if you're in Atlanta and you start coughing up blood, you need to go to the ER in Atlanta. You need to stop everything you're doing, because that could kill you. And so I tested negative for cancer. There was no tumors in the CAT scan. My lung tissue is severely inflamed for some reason, but it's not COVID, so they don't know what it is. But So they prescribed me a really strong antibiotic. So I'm on antibiotics, and I'm also on uh, prednisone, which is I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, hopefully, which is a type of steroid, but not like the type for muscle lifting. This is supposed to ease the agitation in my inflamed lung tissue. And I've been taking my medicine. I've been taking antibiotics, and as you can tell, I'm not as congested as I was as I was yesterday. And also, when I was in the emergency room, they gave me oxygen therapy where I was breathing on a mask, and I was breathing in steroids. There was like some kind of fog medication that had steroids in it. So between all that treatment that they gave me and the prescriptions that I'm taking Flonase. I've got earwax removal drops, and I've also got um, they gave me a freaking I've got an inhaler like I have asthma. So they gave me a prescription inhaler with an aero chamber which enhances it. And man, that's pretty potent. But yeah, so I've been using my inhaler because I've had heavy congestion for the last like almost month, like 2.5 weeks, 2.5, 3 weeks. I've been really sick, and probably more closer to 3 weeks now. And it just wasn't going away. And when I first got into the hotel, I was severely dehydrated. I went to the front desk, got 3 bottles of water. They were kind enough to give me water because this hotel room has no refrigerator, no microwave, and I needed water to use the coffee machines, and I needed to take my medication. And once I started drinking water and became hydrated again, I started getting a little bit congested again. So when I was in the hotel, I used my inhaler. I used the Flonase inhaler, and I took my antibiotic, and I took my steroid, my um, prednisone steroid, and now my congestion is cleared up again. So if I stay on top of this and I take my medications as prescribed, I should be okay. I should be able to power through this. I've been through tough situations before. I can soldier on. I mean, I'm a military veteran, so I'm a little bit used to pain and trying to, tough it out, soldier it out. But yeah, I don't want to be too egotistical about it because but yeah, it's freaking nuts, man. I was like hacking up a lot of blood, and I didn't realize I just thought, well, I'm having a rough episode, a rough cough, so maybe my body's just trying to purge all the sickness, and it's a little bit bloody. But apparently, that's really dangerous because that could really result in blood clots in your lungs. So, could be a symptom of TB. It could also be a symptom of cancer. I'm an ex-smoker, but I haven't smoked since 2008. But I used to smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I used to smoke Turkish Silvers, and so that always will keep me at a higher risk for lung cancer. They were a little worried. They said that they don't understand why my lung tissue is so inflamed, and they were worried that it could be a precursor to cancer, which was kind of scary for them to tell me that. Because I was like, just lay it on me, doc. I could take it, man. I've been through hell and back before. I was injured when I was in the Air Force. So literally, I've been through hell and back. I've been through a lot of pain. When I was in the military, I was in a lot of pain. I ripped a muscle in my leg. And when I was in the military, they tried to charge me with a crime, refusal to train, because they said I was lying about my injury. And I was limping when I was marching in formation. And, this was during basic training, of course. And eventually I got kicked out. But then a couple years ago, sued the VA, got a military discharge upgrade. And the VA looked at my records and they were like, yeah, you were wrong. And, we injured you. You got severely injured when you were in military basic training, and we didn't treat you right. So we're going to give you a permanent VA disability pension. So yeah, I've been through tough situations, near death experiences in the past. I could go on and on, but yeah, this was definitely a near death experience, which I didn't even expect. I was like, man, I just got to sleep this off. This is probably COVID. I'm just going to sleep this off. I'm going to isolate because I live alone. I don't have any roommates. And so it's not like I have to worry about getting anybody infected next to me. And I was just trying to isolate and trying to sleep it off because I thought I had COVID, but I didn't. So, rule of thumb, guys, if you're coughing up blood for 4 days, it's probably not a good sign. You should go to the doctor immediately. You should probably not even drive yourself there. You should just call the ambulance and have yourself taken there by ambulance because that's life threatening. You can die. People have died. There was that one guy who was a political commentator, Ben something. I can't remember his name. I'll have to look him up. He had COVID and he got a blood clot in his throat, not in his lungs, in his throat, and he died from a blood clot in his throat due to COVID. So yeah, if you're coughing up blood, guys, it could be COVID. It could, because COVID sometimes will make you cough up blood. It could be TB, which is tuberculosis, because that infects all your lung tissue and causes you blood blisters and causes you to cough up blood. Or it could be another kind of viral infection. So, I mean, I had also was dealing with an abscess tooth, but it wasn't hurting. So I didn't, they wanted to send, when I went to the dentist, they wanted to send me to a specialist. Uh, and it was like, screw you, your specialist. It's like, okay, it's not going to be covered by the insurance. It's going to end up costing thousands of dollars because they want to do another root canal and another crown. And so I just ignored it because it wasn't hurting. But then I got like a little pus pocket by the tooth where it was abscessed. And I think this was not caused by COVID. I think it was caused by my abscess tooth. So luckily, now that I'm taking antibiotics, and I've been taking antibiotics for a couple of days, I feel so much better. That pus pocket has disappeared, and now I'm totally recovering. I'm getting my energy back with my lungs. I'm totally recovering. So I think it was caused by an abscess tooth and just dental incompetence because I'd had my tooth already crowned. It was supposed to be already fixed. And I hate when modern dentists do that crap to you. Well, we can't fully fix this, so you need to go to a specialist. Here's a referral. You need to call this other dentist and take the referral and get another appointment down the road, and then we'll charge you $1,500 for a root canal, which will probably not be covered by your insurance, and then we'll charge you another $5,000 for a crown. So I put that off because of that, because it's expensive. And it wasn't hurting me at the time, but it may have almost killed me. So yeah, that's another thing. You can't put that kind of stuff off. And that's why it's always good to have an emergency fund for things like that. But not everybody's fortunate enough to have good insurance or an emergency fund. But yeah, so kind of like King Ramesses II of Egypt, the ancient pharaoh who died of a tooth abscess. And the reason why they know this is his mummy was so well preserved that his abscess tooth was preserved, and he had a hole in his gums, and he had a hole in his, even though his mummy was like over 2,200 years old, there was enough of him preserved. They were able to do an autopsy and determine his cause of death. But so yeah, don't do that. If you're sick, you need to go to the doctor. If you have an abscess tooth and you don't have the money to get a root canal or a crown and it's not covered by your insurance, you can take antibiotics and it will kill the infection. And for a time, it'll make it better. And sometimes it can even fully heal. But you will still, in the future, you could still have a reoccurring problem with a future infection. So at some point, you do want to try to either get that tooth extracted or get another root canal done. So, yeah, that's something I might have to work on when I get back. But yeah, well, so when, I was just a dumbass. I should have never, the first few days that I was sick, I should have gone to the ER. I shouldn't have let myself suffer for so long, but it was because I misdiagnosed. This is why if you're not a doctor, And even if you are a doctor, you shouldn't try to self-diagnose because you're not a medical expert. You don't know always what you're doing. I self-diagnosed myself with COVID, and I tested negative for COVID. I didn't have COVID at all. It was probably due to an abscess tooth that led to the because your sinus canals are connected to your dental canals. So if you have a dental abscess, it can go into your sinus canals, go into your ears, because my ears got all stuffy. It can go into your nose, your throat, and into your lungs. It can spread throughout your whole body, and it can result in septic shock. So I'm doing much better now. It's amazing how much of a comeback I've made just in the last couple of days. But yeah, so I shouldn't have waited so long. I shouldn't have procrastinated, but that was partially due to the fact that I thought I was self isolating. I thought I had COVID, and I thought I was doing everybody a favor because I didn't want to go to the emergency room and expose people to COVID. But I didn't have COVID. What little do I know? So that just comes to show you if you're sick and you feel like you're deathly ill, don't try to sleep it off like I did. Go to the doctor. Anyway, I don't know what else to add to that. You like my story? Interesting story.
Yeah, I
Hello?
do like your story. I think you should talk about like how many tests you had to do and how you just had to come in there to get your ears irrigated.
Yeah,
And
I
by the
went
way,
in
there's
there
a 5 second
originally
delay
because
with
I was
this.
just trying to be like, I'm in a hurry to go to Dragoncon. And I originally just wanted to get my ears irrigated because my ears were all stuffy. I still haven't gotten all of my hearing back because I still have a little bit of ringing in the ears because my ear canals are all congested. So I'm trying to clear that up by taking all my medications. But I went in there just trying to get ear canal, get my ears irrigated, and they just wanted to do test after test. They were like, "Well, you're breathing really abnormally. You're wheezing and you're breathing very heavily. So we need to do X-rays." And I had to wait a couple hours to do X-rays. Then they were like, "We need to do blood work." And then they were like, "We need to take you in to do a CAT scan." So I was doing all these tests, and then they put me into a regular hospital bed. Um, and they wanted to keep me there for 3 days. And so I wish I would have gone to the doctor like 2 weeks ago, and then I could have stayed there for 3 days and got all the tests I needed done. But I had to go, I had to live my life. But I felt better after the oxygen therapy. But yeah, they just doing test after test. They did 4 COVID tests. It was like they didn't believe. They were like, he has to have COVID, so we got to keep poking him time and time again. And like, what else can we charge that's expensive to your insurance? That's what it felt like. It's like, oh, CAT scans are expensive, but his Medi-Cal will cover it because I had to show proof of insurance with my Medi-Cal card. The cool thing about California, if you're a resident of California, they have single payer insurance, unlike the rest of the country. If you're below the poverty line in California, you only need to make under 66,000 a year to qualify for Medi-Cal, and all your medical expenses are covered. Now, there's some medications that they don't cover, like my eardrops. I had to pay for that out of pocket because it was not covered by my insurance. But my antibiotics, my steroids, my Flonase, my inhaler was all covered by my insurance. And so they have a really good system that improves the quality of life compared to other states like Florida, which is what I'm originally from. Florida has no Medicaid expansion for the poor. It's like if you're poor and you can't afford a $7,000 a year bronze plan, screw you. You need to just go home and die. But yeah, it was just nuts. I went in at 8 o'clock, 8:30. I went into the emergency room at 8:30, and they were doing so many tests after tests after tests. And I did 3 bouts of oxygen therapy. I was there until like 3 o'clock in the morning, and they weren't going to let me. They weren't going to discharge me. They were going to keep me there for 3 days. And I told her, I said, "Hey, listen, here's the deal. I need to catch my flight. I got to get out of here. I'm sorry." And they were like, "Well," and she goes, "Well, what are you going to do if you start coughing up blood again?" And I was like, "Well, I haven't coughed up blood in a couple days, and you gave me the oxygen therapy, and I feel much better now." and I need to scat. I need to get out of here. And so yeah, I mean they did a million tests, but I realize now the reason why they did a million tests, blood work, X-rays, CAT scan, because they were testing for cancer, because they thought that my inflamed lungs were very abnormal, and that it was a symptom of, it could have been a precursor to cancer. But they're still not sure. They're still saying that I need, when I get back, I need to go to my GP and get more tests. And they also said that my esophagus is very abnormally narrow. They think that because I've had obsessive acid reflux, but I haven't had obsessive acid reflux. There's been a few times, like I would say I could count it on one hand. I think there was 3 times in the last year where I ate something that upset my stomach and I coughed up acid, and then I immediately rinsed out my mouth with water to get rid of that acid and gargled with it. But that only happened like maybe 2 or 3 times in the last year. So I don't normally have a reoccurring problem with acid reflux, but they were saying that was a concern too because my esophagus was very narrow. But I don't feel anything different in my esophagus. It could be that my esophagus is just inflamed because I've been really sick. So I don't know what else I can add to that. Any other questions you got there, 8 foot
I
beast
think
dude?
you should talk about your Dragoncon stuff and your trip, like how this was gonna impact your trip if you were like
Well,
even
yeah.
more
Oh,
sick and
yeah.
how you thought you were.
Well, I thought I was screwed. I thought I was going to miss my flight. And then the other problem, and the other thing I was worried about was like, well, if I have COVID, is it really cool to, should I really get on a flight if I'm testing positive for COVID? And then it's like, damn, what am I going to do? I'm going to drive myself to DragonCon. It would probably take me a week to drive here because that's like 2,000 miles from LA, to drive from LA to Atlanta. I mean, according to Google Maps, I could drive to Atlanta in one day, 8 hours, but I can't drive for one day, 8 hours without sleeping. So really, when you're driving, you can only really drive about 8 hours a day. And so that's like 32 hours of driving. So that's at the bare minimum. If you timed it really tightly, it would still take you at least 4 days to drive from East Coast to West Coast and hope that your car doesn't break down. And I was like, what the hell am I going to do? So, yeah, it almost totally screwed me. My backup plan was, if they continue to keep me in the hospital and do more tests, I was just going to try to book another flight the very next day because that was going to cost me an extra $600 for a one-way ticket. But because the round trip ticket was from Burbank to Atlanta was like $600 round trip, and that was booking the flight 6 months in advance. So it was $300 each way. But booking it at the last minute was like double the price. But even then, if I had tested positive for COVID, it could have derailed me. So that's another reason why when I first started getting really sick, I probably, even if I had COVID, I should still go to the doctor and not try to sleep it off. But I could be stubborn that way. I don't always like to go to the doctor because it's just such a big hassle. But yeah, I went there thinking that I was going to be in and out within an hour to get my ears irrigated, and I'm there all freaking night getting test after test. I'm like, God, these guys. And then they 4 COVID tests. I don't know if anybody's had 4 COVID tests in one night. My nose was so sore from being, because they stick that swab, that long stick with the cotton swab up your nose, and it's so painful and intrusive, and it's irritating. It's the worst thing ever. I can't stand. I don't like getting a COVID test. I'll do it because I know you gotta have a scientific method, man. You gotta be able to test whether you're sick or not. But it was just nuts that they kept losing my COVID test, and yeah, it almost totally derailed my whole trip. I'm lucky I did. I should have, next year if I get sick within, if I'm that sick within a couple days, then I'll go to the ER. If I'm too sick to drive, then I'll just call 911 and get an ambulance. Because in that case, it's an emergency. But in this case, I just took a lift because I wasn't feeling well, and I didn't want to deal with the stress of trying to find a parking space. Sometimes downtown LA can be really hard to park, and then you have to worry about people vandalizing your car or breaking into your car, particularly in downtown LA and downtown Hollywood. And so I didn't want to deal with that, so I just took a lift to the hospital. Plus, I needed to, I needed to go to a hospital that was a little bit further away that was open 24 hours. But yeah, yeah, I totally almost screwed up DragonCon, but now I'm here. I'm registered with the press corps. I got to pick up my badge tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern time. I'm in the Eastern time zone, so it's 3 hours ahead of LA time because LA is on Pacific Standard Time. I'm in Eastern time zone. So as we're talking right now, it's like 3:52 a.m. But I can afford to stay up late because I took a nap, and the press office doesn't open until 2 p.m. So at the earliest, I'm not going to be able to pick up my badge until 2 p.m. And I'll probably leave around 1:30 p.m. I'll probably take another nap, and get up, go find some place to eat breakfast. Maybe I'll go to the food court at the Hyatt. I love going to the food court at the Hyatt because they have a really good sushi place. I forgot the name of it, but it's pretty good sushi. It's like a sushi buffet, but they have some good restaurants in there. And I do miss the Orange Julius. I used to love to go to the Orange Julius, but that closed down like 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. I can't remember. It's been a while, but but yeah, I'll be interviewing people in cosplay mostly, and any other interviews. I'll be promoting my website, andrewstreet.com, and I'm promoting 8-Foot Beasts, 8footbeasts.com. I got flyers for 8footbeasts.com. So anybody who is a fan of 8-Foot Beasts or a fan of Steampunk Star Rays and of amberstreet.com, that's myself, just hit me up, the guy with the top hat, the guy with the goggles and the beat up top hat, and hit me up and I will give you a flyer. I can give you a color flyer, color printed. It's not just a flyer, it's also a comic strip. So if you want a collectible comic strip, that just hit me up. But so yeah, I'm looking forward to having a lot of fun. I'm feeling a lot better now because I'm taking the medication. I'm taking it as prescribed. And as you can hear, I'm still slightly congested, but I'm a lot better. I'm gonna soldier it on, man. Soldier it on, man. I gotta live my life. And but yeah, lesson learned. Don't put off dental procedures. Don't put off, if you're sick, don't put off going to a doctor for 2 weeks like I did. That's not a good idea because that puts your health in jeopardy and can jeopardize your whole trip, especially if you're taking a vacation. Although in my case, it's technically work because I am working for Dragoncon as press. So I've been doing press I'm part of the Dragoncon press corps. I've been doing press here at Dragoncon since 2017. But Dan Carroll, the Dragoncon press director, I'd asked him, I said, man, I'm a small YouTuber. Why did you pick me for press? And he said, well, you do things with cosplayer. You do cosplay interviews. Most people don't do that. Most people just take videos of cosplayer and they don't people who cosplay dress up in costume. And they don't ask them why did they do that cosplay or how much did it cost. But I'll interview people and I'll like, how much does your costume cost? How long did it take to put it together? What inspired you to do this costume? Do you do other conventions? And so some people find that interesting, although there's a very small few. I mean, my channel is small. It's about 1,300 people that are subscribed to me. So, but I'll take what I can get. Any other questions? 8 Foot Beast.
That's still more subs than me, my god, but I'm relatively new to YouTube.
Well, you're halfway there. You're halfway to where I'm at, and your channel's grown a lot faster. I've been on YouTube since 2007. Now, in 2007, I originally created a YouTube channel just to be able to comment because you couldn't comment or respond to other YouTube creators unless you had your own YouTube account, which gave you a channel. And originally, I was uploading like music video. I used to direct music videos because I'm an indie film director as well as a journalist and artist, military veteran. But in 2007, I was just uploading like music videos I directed for a metal band that's now defunct called Subject 08. I did a Fat Mama rap music video that I directed. And so I was just using it as portfolio work where I could show people a link to the type of videos that I worked on to try to get more work. And then that eventually evolved into a video vlog. I've only been doing YouTube as a video vlog since 2009, but it's hard. I guess some people don't really, are not into the steampunk stuff as hardcore as I am, because steampunk is not quite as popular as it was in the late 2000s as it is now. I mean, it's still a niche following, but I don't know. I mean, my YouTube audience has grown very, very slowly. So I have millions of views, and I've interviewed a lot of big celebrities. I interviewed Keir DeLay, who played Dave in 2001: A Space Odyssey. I've interviewed Nichelle Nichols, who played Lieutenant Uhura in the classic Star Trek, and she's sadly since passed away. I've interviewed a lot of celebrities over the years. Those are just to name a few, and I have some videos that have gotten hundreds of thousands of views. Also interviewed Cheryl Flynn back in 2018. She used to be a prominent actress and sex symbol of the early 90s. So a lot of prominent stuff, and I have a lot of videos that have hundreds of thousands of views per video. My whole channel has, I think, I have at least like 2 million views. I hate how oh, sorry, I overreached in my estimate. I have 1.2 million views. I have 1,282,000 views. That sounds like a lot, but in the context that I've had my YouTube channel for 17 years, 1.2 million views in 17 years is not that good. I mean, it's not terrible. Uh, I would definitely love to grow an audience. So I'm revamping my YouTube channel. I created a whole new intro video. It's a very crude, basic one. I was really sick. Being really sick in the month of August really slowed me down. I wasn't able to edit a lot of videos that I've been procrastinating to do, and I wasn't able to do a proper YouTube intro video. I just did a quick one in front of a couple of my paintings and talk about what I am basically. And I needed to do a new video of something because I hadn't uploaded a video in about 8 months. And I guess I wanted to let people know that I wasn't dead. And that's another reason why if you're going to do something like upload videos and edit videos, you shouldn't procrastinate because you could get sick and be sick for a month like I was. Uh, but yeah, the biggest mistake was trying to self isolate because I thought I had COVID, and you should never make that assumption. And you should still go to the doctor even if you have COVID. So that's the way the cookie crumbles for the month of August. But now I am here. I'm feeling better. I'm excited, but I do probably need to take a nap at some point, and then I need to go get breakfast at some point. But yeah, it's 4:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, August the 29th, as we're talking. I checked into the hotel yesterday. This hotel, I will tell you this, the furniture is badly scratched up, and it irritates me because they charge $75 a day for a security deposit. So that's a total additional cost because I'm staying here for 6 nights. It ends up being like, well, actually that's 6 nights times 75. Get my calculator out. Yeah, it's a $450 security deposit, and it will refund your credit card as long as you don't damage anything. But some furniture here was already damaged, and it was annoying, and so I complained about it. I had a similar problem last year, but I was able to arbitrate with the manager. I did like a corporate arbitration. I was like, "You guys are supposed to be a luxury hotel, and you got scratched up furniture." I was like, "I don't really care if the furniture's scratched up because it's functional. It's in good shape other than cosmetic. It's only cosmetic, but I don't want to be blamed for creating that damage, and I don't want to lose my security deposit." And this is the second year I've had to deal with it. I requested a partial redaction of my payment or a partial refund. They said that they would have to get back with me with the manager, so I'm going to talk to the manager tomorrow. I was able to get like a $300 refund last year because this is supposed to be a luxury hotel. Everything works. There's a TV that works. The Wi-Fi works. I finally got it figured out. The room is clean. It's really nice. Most of the furniture is in good condition, but there's like this study that's badly scratched up. The entertainment center is badly scratched up. There's scratches on the walls. So people, if you run into that problem, you need to take a picture of everything, document it, email it. I texted it to their tech support. So now I've got a record that I put on file that, hey, I did not do this damage. I mean, it's only cosmetic damage, but a lot of hotels will just charge you the full replacement cost of that furniture. And this is some really nice furniture, and that can be really expensive to refinish furniture. And a lot of places will just throw the furniture out and just replace it with new furniture. And that can cost thousands of dollars. So you have to be really careful with that. And you have to stay on top of it. So that's the only gripe I have with this hotel right now. It's the second year that I've dealt with scratched furniture. Like I said, it's just cosmetic. It's not that I'm mine, but the only reason why I do mine is because I'm paying a security deposit, and it puts me at risk of paying additional costs for damages I did not do. And it's annoying that they charge a security deposit. I get it; it's a homeless filter. The one thing I will comment is I noticed the homeless problem in Atlanta is significantly worse than it was last year. I've always seen homeless people in Atlanta, but this year I saw, like, when I took a taxi from the airport. Taxis here are really cheap for some reason. It was only $42 for a taxi. I couldn't find the area at the Atlanta airport where I needed to take a lift, so I was like, screw it, I'm just going to take a taxi because, like in LA, it would cost me sometimes $120 to take a taxi home from LAX. But here, taking a taxi 22 miles, they just charge you a flat fee of $42. So that was cool. And so when I was taking a taxi through downtown Atlanta, there was like two whole city blocks of tent encampments. And I'm like, man, am I in LA? I would swear I'm in LA right now. This reminds me of downtown LA. And it reminds me of like Skid Row. And it's not. It's just homelessness is getting worse everywhere, folks. And it's because of greedy corporations and equity firms like BlackRock that are jacking up the rents and the property values of everything to the point where people can't afford to live. You're not going to be able to afford to rent anywhere on a McDonald's shop. So it's getting to a problem where people slip through the cracks, and the cracks are pretty wide. And if you don't have family or friends to help give you a base of support like cheap rent or free rent, then you can be screwed and you could be homeless for years. But yeah, so Yeah, so you got to watch out. But yeah, that's everything that's going on right now. Any other questions, Mister 8 Foot Beast?
Yeah, I'm the real Mr. Beast. Um, yeah, I got some comments here. Someone says that your lungs seem to be fine because you're able to talk for 35 minutes, but you didn't even know that you didn't even know that anything was wrong until like you went to the hospital there,
Well,
like all of a
that
sudden,
is
like what
true.
was
That is true. My lungs seem to be fine because I am much better. I just said that I've been taking medications. I've been taking antibiotics for 2 days. I'm taking steroids. I'm taking Flonase. I have an inhaler. Uh, um, so yeah, I've been resting. I slept on the airplane, and so yeah, I'm a lot better now. And I also went through like 3 hours of oxygen therapy. I don't know if you ever breathe pure oxygen, but it will rejuvenate your lungs. It's amazing. Uh, so yeah, it's amazing. Your body's immune system can turn around pretty quickly. And I'm not being scammy. I'm just saying what happened to me, and I'm just telling you what the doctor told me. But yeah, I mean, when you take your medication as prescribed, sometimes. You hear me? Uh oh. My AirPods just died. I need to charge them.
oh my god.
I had to switch. I'm on my MacBook Pro. I run my 2015 Retina. I had to switch to my internal speakers because my Apple AirPods just died. The left one died, and then the right one died. So now I have to put them back on my charging case. But Retina, I prefer the 2015 Retina. That's another thing I could talk about technical stuff. I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, why don't you get an M1? They're so cheap now." They're not really that cheap because the problem with the M1 MacBook Pro, like if I buy like a 2020 or 2021 13-inch, one thing I like having a 15-inch screen, but even if I were to buy like a 15-inch MacBook Air or a 14-inch MacBook Pro, um, they don't have upgradable RAM and they don't have upgradable storage. And Apple is pretty greedy and stingy when it comes to storage and RAM. They only give you like 8 gigs of RAM, and 256 gigs of SSD storage, and it can't be upgraded because it's all soldered on board. And that's just not worth it to me. And then if you custom spec out, because the problem is the majority of the used market for M1 and M2 Max are 8 gig of RAM machines with only 256 gigs of storage. If you want something better than that, then you're going to have to buy a new M1, M2, M3 MacBook Pro or MacBook Air, and you're going to have it custom built to order, which is going to delay the shipment by like a month because Apple's going to have to custom configure your machine because they have to build it on the fly with extra RAM and extra storage. And I researched that. If I were to get like an M2 MacBook Air or M3 MacBook Air or MacBook Pro, and I wanted to put like 16 or 24 gigs of RAM, and I want to put 2 terabytes of storage, I'm going to be paying like over $2,200, 2,000, depending on what other CPU configuration, and that's just not worth it to me. And considering that it's not repairable, it's not upgradable. The 2015 Retina was the last sort of fully repairable. Well, it was fully repairable MacBook Pro, and also semi-upgradable. With the Retinas, they started getting kind of stingy with the RAM because they had three types of Retina MacBook Pros. They had a 4 gig version, they had an 8 gig version, and a 16 gig version. I have the 16 gig version. You have a 16 gig version. The one that I rebuilt. I built it out of broken. I bought a bunch of broken MacBook Retina parts, and then I just used it. I cannibalized all the parts to make one working machine, and I built one for you.
But I have mine. What now? Did you say something? Oh, okay. Sorry. Anyway, I so um with my Retina MacBook Pro, I've upgraded the storage to 2 terabytes. So I have a 2 terabyte SSD. You can get an adapter. With Retinas, if you're buying them used, because you can't upgrade the RAM, you want to make sure you buy the one with 16. You buy a 4 or 8 gig, you're not going to be able to upgrade it. That's why, like, you can buy Retina MacBook Pros used with 4 gigs of RAM. Often you can buy them for $150 because they're not really worth that much because you can't upgrade the RAM. Well, you can upgrade the RAM, but it's very difficult. It requires you got to download the schematics for the logic board, and you got to order transistors that are smaller, the size of a grain of rice, and then you got to resolder transistors, and you got to order RAM chips from China and hope that you order the correct chips and that they work, and that you didn't waste all that time soldering just to get another dead machine or dead RAM chip. And so it's technically possible to upgrade newer MacBook Pros, but it's not very practical. And so the Retina I do like because the 2015 15-inch Retina is still reasonably fast, and the storage is upgradable. That's the most important thing, is upgrading the storage. I can deal with having 16 gigs of RAM is good for running Final Cut Pro. It's got a quad core i7. Um, this i7 has, on the 2015 Retina, it has like 128 megabytes of L4 cache memory, which is used for quick sync, and also Intel Iris graphics, which speeds up video editing and streaming and rendering. And the Haswell fourth gen i7 is still a very decent CPU. If you look on benchmarks, it's about 50% as fast as an M1. And an M1 is an 8-core CPU. So go figure that the i7, which is only the i7 on the Retina, is only a quad core processor, but yet it's half as fast. So it makes sense because it has only half the cores. But it's good for most things that I need. And the thing that I like about the Retina, if something breaks, I need to get a new logic board or new keyboard. There's millions of parts out there, and it's a lot cheaper to fix a Retina than it is to fix an M1. And I just maybe later down the line I would get an M1, but I just don't like that they're not repairable. This one I've replaced the battery, I've replaced the trackpad. Um, I've upgraded the storage. I added an adapter. I replaced the thermal paste. I, cleaned up the heatsink, to get the CPU temps under control. It's a decent machine. I've heard people like Luke Miani. He's like a big YouTube tech reviewer who does mostly Apple products. He was like, "Oh, it's just a waste of money now to get a Retina. You can just get an M1 used for $6, $600. Yeah, you can buy a $600 M1 MacBook Pro, but it's only going to have 8 gigs of RAM, and it's only going to have 256 gigs of storage with no upgradability. I use Final Cut Pro, man. I need extra storage. I don't want to pay $2,200 just to get extra storage. That's insane to me. I don't want to have a $2,200 luxury item on a plane, like, oh my God, is this going to get confiscated or broken by TSA because they abused it looking at it? Or is somebody going to steal it while I'm at the airport because this is a very expensive luxury item? And then I'm going to freak out if it breaks and it's out of warranty. I'm not going to be able to repair it because Apple has they put a serialized ID number on every part, and you got to have access to Apple server software just to be able to reprogram the serialized IDs. And it's just real shitty what Apple did with their newer MacBook Pros that I'm not a big fan of. Yeah, they're faster and they're more energy efficient, but I'm a budget techer. I don't like to buy bleeding edge. And for right now, for my needs as a journalist and editing in Final Cut Pro, a 2015 Retina is more than good enough for me for what I need. And the fact that you could theoretically put like an 8 terabyte storage in here, 8 terabyte SSD is expensive, but I would have to experiment because the one drawback is it is an older Gen 3 SSD. It tends to not work very well with Gen 4 because Gen 4 SSDs run really hot and they're not 100% backwards compatible with Gen 3. Sometimes they'll work, sometimes they won't. Apple's very finicky about what SSDs it will work with in the firmware. So usually, if you stick with like a Gen 3 Samsung 970 Evo, that's a really good SSD to upgrade a Retina MacBook Pro. But I think on that generation, the biggest you could get was 2 terabyte. So some of the PMY Gen 3 SSDs, I've used those with Retinas as well. Those are really good. You can get like a 2 terabyte for like $140, and it's just Gen 3 drive. Because Gen 3 SSDs don't overheat. Gen 4 SSDs overheat. So that's the other issue that you have to run into is Gen 4 and especially Gen 5 SSDs run notoriously hot and you need a heatsink. Well, this is a thin Retina MacBook Pro. It doesn't have a lot of space for an extra heatsink. You could maybe make a copper shim and make your own custom heatsink, but you're putting yourself at risk there. It's just better to stick with a Gen 3 drive. But still, regardless of that limitation, I've got a quad core i7, 16 gigs of RAM. I have 2 terabyte 970. I have a Samsung 970 Evo 2 terabyte drive in here, and I also I have one of the more higher end Retinas because some of the Retinas, like the one that you have that I built for you, has only Intel integrated graphics, but my Retina has Radeon R9 graphics, and you can even do a little bit of light gaming with that because it's like Radeon R9, 2 megabytes of dedicated, or 2 gigabytes of dedicated video memory. So it's not a bad machine. These are still better than Chromebooks, people. And in a lot of ways, they're still better than Apple Silicon Macs because they're not repairable, they're not upgradable, they have stupid serialized parts. The storage and memory is soldered on board, and you can't upgrade them. And it's too expensive to have one custom built, in my opinion. So for somebody that doesn't want an expensive MacBook that's custom built to order, and you want something that you can easily upgrade to 2 terabytes for $140 because you just need extra space for video editing for running Final Cut Pro. This is a good machine still. Like any of the 2013 through 2015 Retinas, I would avoid the 2016 Retina because the 2016 Retina is where they introduced the crappy touch bar and the blutterfly. The I said blutterfly. I've been thinking of blood a lot, but but the crappy butterfly keyboard, which is prone to failure because the key switches are so freaking thin that dust gets caught up in there and it gets all gummed up, and then you need it within like a year. You need a new keyboard, and so the 2016 Retina, or they don't even call them Retina, they call them Touch Bar Max because they radically changed the keyboard. The 2016 through like 2018 Touch Bar Max are crappy. They don't have upgradable storage. They don't have upgradable RAM. They are more repairable than Apple Silicon to a limited degree, but you're going to be constantly repairing that keyboard, man. What a lot of people do with like the Touch Bar Mac is they'll get an external keyboard, but then if that starts to feel more like a desktop and not a laptop. But I get it because that way you're not putting wear and tear on the keyboard and you hook up an external keyboard, but it's like then it's a junk laptop. And I hate the Touch Bar Max because they did away with like the escape button, and it becomes a programmable button. And sometimes the touch bar will go bad because it's basically a little tiny touch screen. It's just the touch bar is so stupid. And they did away with it with the latest generation of MacBook Pros anyway. So good riddance. Good riddance. So I don't know what else to say. Any other questions before I go to bed, take a nap?
I noticed that on my avatar, for some reason, Skype is messing up my face tracker on my VTuber software. It says error, face tracker process is gone. You could try restarting and
Well,
adjusting
that's not a
camera
good
settings,
sign.
all
Your real
this, but it's
face might
still tracking me.
be seen. Your real face might be seen then. You want to end this and check your
No.
settings? What?
No, my real face isn't being seen because I've already done a test and I see in OBS
Okay.
that my character is here and stuff like that, and it's just not able to track my webcam movements. For some reason, Skype is
Uh,
corrupting the software from being able to track my movements via webcam, but that's okay. I know that this is the first time doing this and that there's a lot of technical issues to be expected the first time doing something like this, so it's okay. And it's also like I don't have a whole lot of viewers because it's in the middle of the night, so it's okay. If I had to suspect, it's probably Skype. Skype is connected to my webcam. Somehow Skype is
okay.
connected to my webcam, and that's
Okay.
demanding the resources from my webcam. That's just corrupting it. Two programs open demanding webcam, I think, is what's locking down the VC face software, but that's all
Uh,
right. There's no
well, you
need
might
to,
be
like,
getting it's your
that
CPU.
it's not even necessary. It's just aesthetic.
Well, if you think that your computer's getting bogged down because you're doing too much multitasking, that could be due to a limitation of CPU. I mean, I built your computer for you, but you have an i5 12400, which some people consider an entry level CPU. Some people consider mediocre CPU, but I mean, it's a 6 core, 12 thread CPU. But yeah, if you're getting into more workstation apps down the line, you might want to upgrade to like a Ryzen AM5 because you can get like a 16 core CPU, and that's more for heavy workstation tasks where you're running voice changer, you're running avatar through OBS, and then you're running all this other stuff with your webcam. You're doing really heavy duty streaming and um, multitasking, and that's more CPU intensive than it is GPU intensive because you're running so many applications, and that's why a lot of people who build workstations go with like Threadripper because Threadripper allows you to hook up a lot more PCI Express lanes because there's a limitation with how many cards you can hook up, where Threadripper gives you a lot less limits. But you don't have to go with Threadripper because that's like really too expensive. You can go with something like Ryzen 7950X, or what was it? Ryzen, yeah, the Ryzen. God, I'm tired. Like the Ryzen 9 79. I wouldn't get the X3D. I would just get the regular X because that's like a 12 core processor, and I think you're learning and you're growing as a user, as a power user. You're starting to realize what used to be good enough before is not good enough before. A 6 core processor is okay, but if I'm doing super heavy multitasking, maybe I'll be better off with a 12 core or a 16 core. And that's why people do get a 16 core. They don't get it for gaming because with most video games, people are just running maybe OBS, or they might be running GeForce Experience, which uses the GPU to capture, and that's not very CPU intensive. It's more GPU intensive. But if you're running workstation apps like what you're doing with, AI voice changer and you're running OBS with an avatar. Now you're doing 3D acceleration, and then you're running webcam apps, and you're running, Skype and other things, and you're doing extreme multitasking. Having a lot of RAM helps, and you do have 32 gigs of like DDR5, which is pretty fast. But at that point, you might want to consider in the future upgrading to a Ryzen 7900X, which is like a 12-core CPU. You can get it for like a few $100. You can get the motherboard for a couple $100 and buy, I think, the CPU for like $300-400. And I'd have to check like what they cost. But even
I
like
think it's
any of the
more of a
AMIs,
software
there's so much.
conflict.
Go what now?
I think it's more of a software conflict. I
Okay.
think that I started Skype before starting my VTuber software. Perhaps if I start my VTuber software before starting Skype, I
Okay,
think that may
that's true. It could
fix
be a
the
soft.
issue next time if I
Okay. Well, yeah, it's probably not going to fix itself until you restart everything. So, do you want to call it quits and let this go for the night? Because it's late and I need to take a nap.
Um,
What do you
no,
want?
I mean, I
Any
mostly did
last
this to
questions before I
let you
go?
on and let you talk. It doesn't matter if I have face tracking, but I just wanted to ask you two more questions and then I'll let you go.
Okay.
One, what was the first sign that you had a problem at the hospital? Like, what was it specifically that revealed that you had a problem? Which symptoms were you showing? Yeah, and was
Well,
it just standard
when I went to the
procedure?
hospital, I was wheezing, and I didn't even complain about my wheezing because I knew I was congested. But the nurse was like really concerned. He's like, "You're not breathing right. You're wheezing. Your breathing is very deep and abnormal. I think you have a lot more wrong going on with you than just your ears." That's what he told me. So then they referred me to a doctor, and they said that my lungs were heavily congested and inflamed, and that I was wheezing. Listened to me breathe with a stethoscope, and he said it was very abnormal. It was very asthma-like symptoms. So, but I've been taking my meds now for 2 days, so I'm a lot better, and I will continue to get better as long as I follow the directions of my medication. So, yeah, that was the first thing. Was they noticed me wheezing and having difficulty breathing. And what was the other question that you had for me?
The other question is, what are your plans for Dragoncon? What are you gonna do? Like, share like the most interested, what the things that you think are the
Well, I
most
like the game.
interesting
I love
about
the game.
Dragoncon. What you're gonna
I'm
do?
gonna try to join a Catan game, but I'm gonna be doing a lot of interview with cosplayers. I may look at see which celebrities I want to get autograph. I'm going to be going to the dealer rooms at the Marismart buildings 1 through 3. I always love going to the dealer rooms looking for comic books. Although in recent years, like when I went last year to DragonCon, there was only about 4 comic book dealers at the whole convention. It was mostly when you go to DragonCon, it's like armor, weapons, like real swords, like real swords that look like something out of a Dragonlance novel, and armor, real chainmail, and they have like steampunk top hats and costumes, and dragon statues, and really large, realistic looking dragon statues, and dragon skulls, and just all kinds of cool artists and merc that you can't get anywhere else. So those are some of the things I'm going to check out: the dealer rooms, some of the artist rooms. I'm going to try to interview some of the artists. I'm going to interview some cosplayers, and I'm checking out the gaming room. I want to try to get into another Catan game. Any follow up questions?
I just wanted to talk about the Monster Love panel really quick at DragonCon. It's called
Oh
something
yeah,
like
you reminded me of that. So you want me
what
to
is
check
that
that
thing
out?
called? The Monster Love panel?
Yeah, I guess I'll check that out because I'm doing that on behalf of 8 Foot Beast. That's the Monster Love Fetish panel. That's really crazy. I went last year to that. It was hilarious. It's about
Oh, it's
people
called
who
Blinking Beasties, I
that
remember.
have like sexual fantasies of making love to monsters. So yeah, there's apparently thousands of people that like that go to the panel every year at Dragoncon.
Thousands of people that like making love to monsters, that's why I'm here. That's what I'm all about.
Well,
That's
yeah,
my
I mean, they
whole,
wait
like,
in line. It
my
was,
whole getup is
if you go to
like
the Monster Love
that.
panel, you need to get in line several hours earlier. You ain't getting in because the line wraps around the whole building. It's hard to get in. The first year I tried to get in, I didn't get in because I got there too late. So last year was the first year I went to that, and it was hilarious. It's not, I went because you're my friend, 8 Foot Beast. You requested me to go. I wouldn't have gone under my own volition, but it was hilarious. It was entertaining. It, it, it was entertaining. I'm not like hardcore into the monster fetish stuff, but some people are, and you are definitely into that. And it was entertaining. It was interesting. It was a whole. I didn't realize it was very popular. It was much more popular than I expected. I mean, literally thousands of people getting in line, and most of them can't even get in because they get in line too late. But because DragonCon's probably like 88,000 people. The last estimate that I heard was it's about 88,000 people. It's the second largest comic book convention in North America. The only one larger than DragonCon would be San Diego Comic Con, which I haven't had the fortune of going because I never can qualify for press. I didn't qualify for press this year because my subscriber count's not big enough, and it's almost impossible to buy a badge now because you have to know somebody or you had to have been registered last year just to have an opportunity to buy a badge because they sell out within seconds, and there's only a narrow window where you could buy a badge. Anyway, so any last thoughts before I go? Because I'm tired.
There is a character that I have in my comments in my live stream. Are you aware of the character Zozo? Zozo is like a demon. I'm not even very well aware what that is
I'm
either.
not aware of that. I
Um,
don't, I don't really follow anime stuff that much.
it's not anime. It's horror.
Okay, I'm not aware of it. I don't follow a lot of horror stuff that much either. I'm more of a sci-fi comic book guy. I like comic books, comic book movies, and science fiction. Like I'm into Star Wars
Yeah.
and Star Trek, and I'm into like Iron Man, Marvel Universe, MCU movies. That's the kind of stuff I'm into. I don't follow a lot of the horror tracks. I'm a casual fan of horror, but I'm not like a hardcore fan of horror. I'm a casual fan of anime. Like I love Super Milk Chan, but nobody remembers that anime. Nobody even talks about it anymore. Um, but I'm not a hardcore fan of anime. I don't know all the latest animes, so yeah, I'm not familiar with it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm trying to get familiar with it. It kind of looks like, based on the picture that I see when I look up Zozo, kind of looks like, I think, like, for some reason, The Exorcist rings a bell for some reason. The
So
Exorcist,
how
yeah,
many
okay,
you got
that's
in your
actually
audience right now?
reference to
How
The
big
Exorcist.
of an audience do we have here?
Um, we don't have it. We have two watching now. It's only two people.
Woo! Two is better than zero, I guess. If you can subscribe to my
It was more people a little early.
channel. What?
It was a little bit more earlier when we first started, but it's in the middle of the night. But people sometimes go back and rewatch this. Like, I have one person on TikTok who will actually go back and rewatch the stream
Well, I think I'm
sometimes.
going to hang up and go. I am going to bid you farewell.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, I know you gotta go. I know you
all right.
gotta go. Yeah. This
Thank you,
was
April
a
Beast.
technical
Thanks for
disaster.
Thank you for inviting me on. Check out ifitbeast.com. Check out amberstreet.com if you want to subscribe to the person that was being interviewed, me, Steampunk Star Raisin. You have a nice day, and I will see you 25 billion years.